I'm delighted today to be joined by Bernard Marr, who's an international best-selling author, keynote speaker, futurist, and strategic business and technology advisor. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Bernard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Joe.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And would you mind starting by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background?
So I grew up in Germany, then moved to England to study at Cambridge. When I finished my degree, they offered me a job. So I joined and became an academic for some time, looking at how companies use information to inform decision making. I wrote a report on software that was then published by Gartner and became a Gartner report. So I very quickly got catapulted into the tech industry, and I've never looked back. I worked at Cambridge, then moved from there to Cranfield School of Management. And then after 10 years in academia, I thought it's time to just focus on my own thing. So I now do my own thing, doing a mix of consulting work, helping some of the world's biggest brands and governments on their strategy and digital transformation. I do writing, so I have a regular column in Forbes, and I write my own books and LinkedIn articles and post for my own website. And then I still do teaching, and then more recently the influencer side has picked up. So I never saw myself as an influencer as such, more as a practitioner in this field. But then I've built up 2 million followers across different platforms, and this gave me an amazing opportunity to work with brands to help them spread the word and share some of the great stories they are working on.
Fantastic. Well, that's really impressive. So what are the key topics that you're currently focused on?
I focus on technology trends. So one of the things that I help companies understand, how are some of the key technologies driving this new fourth industrial revolution. So I look at artificial intelligence, big data analytics, but also things like blockchain, the Internet of Things, 5G. So I have written a book called Tech Trends in Practice, where I look at the 25 biggest tech trends that are driving the fourth industrial revolution, which has really broadened out my spectrum. And I actually get most excited about is some of the intersections between things like AI and biology, for example, and other things. So they are all topics I focus on. And I have just started writing a new book on business trends in practice. So this is taking it even wider, where I look at what are some of the overarching business trends, from looking at the environmental impact and how organizations need to focus on this. And again, I cover a lot of technology, but also some of the wider demographic shifts. And this is all the intersection between technology and strategy.
Fantastic. Wow, that sounds really interesting. So this is your profile in the Analytica platform. As you can see here, we've categorized you as an author, event speaker, and a content creator, and an industry key opinion leader. You've got very good topical authority here, which is how you're referenced by other influencers in the space. You can see you get very good engagement on Twitter and LinkedIn. And here is your thought leadership topic. So you can see here a lot of your conversation is around the topic of AI, also robotics, coronavirus analytics, Industry 4.0, automation, cloud computing, and digital transformation. So here is some of your most engaged network on Twitter. So we can see that you are very well connected to people like Des Blanchfield, Tamara McCleary, Kevin Jackson, and Glenn Gilmore, to name a few. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about your audience. So in terms of the engaged network, you're engaged with a lot of senior management people and C-suite executives in mostly the technology industry. And then some of the brand mentions have been IBM, Huawei, Oracle, AT&T, and Microsoft. How does that feel to you? Does that look like a good representation of some of the content that you've been talking about on social media?
More recently, absolutely, yes. And the profile looks good, because I think my sweet spot is that I have a lot more senior decision makers in my network, especially on LinkedIn.
That makes sense. And then you can also dig in a little bit deeper into some of the content that you've been speaking about recently. So here are some of the actual posts. I can see you've been doing some LinkedIn Lives recently. Tech trends is a big topic, and Clubhouse conversation. Some of the keywords and hashtags that you've been using here: technology, data, business, tech, AI, artificial intelligence, and LinkedIn Live. Fantastic. So I just wanted to talk a little bit also about this report that we featured you in recently. So this is a who's who in data science and machine learning. And here you can see you're listed in as one of the top voices within that area on the topic of big data, which is a prominent topic within data science and machine learning. What would you say within your key topics? What trends could you see coming up in the next 5 years that people need to be aware of?
So for me, some of the key trends are the statification of our world, so data becoming a hugely important asset. The fact that every business is now a digital business and that technology has to be at the center of every business strategy. The environment is a massive trend that spans everything. Within technology, things like machine vision and natural language processing are big topics. The whole rollout of 5G is a big topic. Intelligent robots, and the way we feed ourselves, the way we look at our health, the way education is delivered, all of those will be influenced by some of the technologies I've talked about. So many topics that I could carry on now for hours talking about super exciting topics.
Oh, fantastic. And in terms of which companies in that area are doing really innovative things that you would think to name check, some of the bigger brands?
I've written a series of books that are focusing on different specific technologies in practice. So I've written a book on big data in practice, a book on artificial intelligence in practice. One that's coming out is extended reality in practice. And those books are all about featuring companies that do some exciting stuff. But when we talk about some technologies like big data and AI, so there are some trailblazers around the world, companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and others, and also many Chinese companies, so Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, hugely innovative companies that drive many of those technologies.
Fantastic. And in terms of the influencers that you follow in that space at the moment, who would some of the people be that you look to be inspired by some of these key topics?
I'm in regular conversations with some of the leading thinkers in Google and Microsoft and in Oracle and IBM and Dell and HP. And many of these organizations have amazing people. But I wouldn't want to single out any particular influencers.
Finally, just looking at the impacts of COVID, what impacts have you seen over the last sort of 12 months due to COVID?
In terms of my work? Or
in terms of the tech industry in general?
Yeah, so I feel quite lucky, to be honest, that the tech industry has thrived in the last 12 months, and tech basically has enabled us to carry on with help businesses carry on functioning internally, help them digitally connect with their customers. We've seen this reflected in the stocks of many of the tech companies that have just exploded in value. And obviously this slightly rosy picture is counterbalanced by all the hardship that many organizations are facing. So I have many traditional businesses that I work with too, from businesses in the hospitality industry that are having a really difficult time, but I help them with their strategy and help them digitize. And one of the things that we've learned over the last 12 months is that those companies who have digitized and focused on technology are the ones that are thriving, and they're by a factor of 4 are now leaving competitors behind that have not invested in technologies.
So outside of your key topics, are there any other topics or interests that you have generally?
Because the topic range I'm focusing on is so large that there's not much time. My key focus really is even if I would do this for free, what I'm doing now, if you know what I mean. If nobody would ever pay me, I would still look into all of these technology trends and future business developments. So in my world, this is my key focus. And my other key focus is my family and my private life. And at the moment, I feel like I have a really good balance between those two.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of the interview. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Bernard.
My pleasure.
Just finally, if a brand wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Best is by email.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Bernard. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks.